Welcome into Before the Hedges, presented by Kroger. I'm Hannah Chalker, alongside UGA recruiting reporter Jeff Sintel. We hope everybody's week is off to a good start on this wonderful Monday, coming off Mother's Day on Sunday. Happy belated Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. And your wife, Erin, is the mother to Hannah, 11, Kyle, 9. How was y'all's Sunday?
That was very good. That's going to score me some insider points right there.
They're also watching. So.
They're probably watching from Kyle's basketball camp lessons. So 2 dedicated viewers, I know that. I hope he works on his left-hand dribble. But great. You know, Mother's Day, if any gentlemen out there know that, it's really not a Mother's Day. It's more of a Mother's Day weekend. And we made sure that the special lady, the 5-star, the CEO of our household, was put on a pedestal all weekend because she surely deserves it.
Oh, well, I'm a dog mom, so I got to celebrate a little bit too. We've got a really great show coming up for you today. At the top of the show, we are going to rapid fire through all of the latest UGA recruiting news. We also have some get-to-knows for you. 2019 5-star defensive tackle Travon Walker and 2020 defensive end Myles Murphy. That's going to be a really cool in-depth story for you. We'll also have some new names to know, so maybe some names you guys have never heard of at all. So we have that to share, and prom dogs. It's prom season, and Jeff rounded us up some really fun prom pictures for some of the 2019 recruits. So excited to share that with you. As always, we want to hear your thoughts, especially when it comes to those prom dog pictures. We want you guys to weigh in. And we've got a really good show coming up.
We've got Gucci belts, Hannah. And we want everybody to jump in and say who wore it best, who wore it well, and they're going to notice all those kind of open collar shirts on prom night for all those 2018 signees. We like doing stuff like this because we like to humanize these players.
Let's get right to the latest news out of Athens this week. Sophomore defensive back DeAngelo Gibbs has re-enrolled in classes coming off of shoulder surgery. How important is this to Georgia, Jeff?
Well, DeAngelo was the marquee recruit, one of the marquee recruits of the 2017 class. And when you look at DeAngelo, where he was rated and how good he was, well, the only peers he had in that class were Richard LeCount, played a lot. You also had DeAndre Swift, played a lot. You had Andrew Thomas, Jake Fromm. Those are contemporaries for both of those guys. And DeAngelo just didn't get his shot last year. So you're going to see DeAngelo. I know people are wondering, where is he going to fit in? What's he going to be? How good is he going to be? That's just something to take a look at. I guess the big thing, the simplest way to say it is like DeAngelo Gibbs was a pretty significant recruiting story because he's back enrolled in Athens and taking classes. And that's the first step to know where folks want him to get to be.
Jeff, you told me that fans were going to react to this one. Why do they need to proceed with caution on DeAngelo Gibbs?
Yeah, I think it's a multi-tiered thing with DeAngelo. Getting him enrolled and back in summer classes is a positive sign for DeAngelo, but he's had an injury. It looks like if you see him on social media, you see him a lot more active. You see him recovering from some surgery there. I've been told he's kind of almost out of the rehab period. You see him working out again. Looks like to me like he's lost a little weight. But I think this summer, how he progresses in the off-season program, what he does as a student, I think there are still some steps and some hurdles for DeAngelo to clear. And I think most people need to practice caution and not just think about him making egg tackles against Austin Peay and those Governors on the first weekend in September. Just pump the brakes a little bit and let things take their course.
More dog news. UGA drops down to number 6 for the 2019 recruiting class. FSU leaps Georgia in the rankings. Why is this? And we're not panicking, right? Georgia is not tracking towards number 1 for 2019, but it's okay.
It's okay. I think sometimes, Hannah, on this show, like there's a lot of people on our DawgNation message board. I think maybe the all-time popular thread on our board is got something like 20,000 views, which is what's wrong with UGA recruiting. And sometimes with Miss Hannah providing a lot of the sunshine for everybody and with me assisting, I think this program is going to be a lot about what's right about UGA recruiting. And I'm going to say this probably every show. Georgia's 3 most important centerpiece recruits, Nolan Smith, Jaden Hazelwood, and Dominic Blaylock, are already committed and have been committed for quite some time. And the big gets, 3 5-stars, are already in the house.
So the number 6 class for 2019 overall, let's go ahead and show you the updated 2019 offer list. Up 12 offers this week. That's 252 total offers out there on the table. We are going to start with offense, Jeff.
Yeah, so it's you see like there's 12 new offers, and that's kind of parallels evaluation season. You see a lot of spring practice visits from UGA coaches on social media. You also see some track meets coaches are at. That's an eyeball evaluation. I thought it was interesting. Georgia added another offensive tackle recruit, and they're now up to 16 quarterback offers. Still 11 pro-style guys there. Running back, Georgia offered another one of those over recent weeks. Tight end, not a lot of traction at tight end with those offers ever since Ryan Godey committed. Those have been kind of static. You flip over to the defensive side of the class and who's been offered so far, and the majority of those, 9 of those offers, those new 12 offers over the last week came on the defensive side of the ball. One thing that jumps out at me is there were 3 new defensive tackles offered. That's going to be the highlight position, the crucial position for Georgia, I feel, in the class of 2019, how the Bulldogs do there. They added another outside linebacker offer, another cornerback offer, defensive ends. You see some notables there, Nolan Smith, Bill Norton, J.D. Bertrand. He's actually committed as an outside linebacker, but that young man out of Blessed Trinity is going to be a hoss for Georgia in the middle.
All right, we have so much more 2019 class breakdown coming up, but let's jump ahead to 2020 and a decommitment to note. That's Atlanta native wide receiver Jermaine Burton. He just decommitted from Miami, announcing on Twitter, he says, announcing I am decommitting from the University of Miami. I just want some time to think and see other places, enjoy the process. If you're watching on video, you can see his official tweet there. Jeff, how significant is this? UGA has been after him for a while, right?
Yeah, first of all, Hannah, can we practice our emoji faces right there? That's one of those that you see on Twitter, and that kind of makes you go, Because what happened with Jermaine Burton, okay, he was at Hateville Charter to begin with. He parachutes into IMG Academy for his sophomore year, and something very rare happened right there. He was basically an instant starter at IMG's powerhouse program his sophomore year at receiver, had a great year there. He's transferring back to Marietta High School for his junior season. Marietta's going to have Harrison Bailey, a whole lot of guys. It's kind of like the new Grayson for Georgia high school football. He was the MVP at the Atlanta opening regional, also the fastest man. Now he's at Marietta High. He was at G-Day on April the 21st, and he has a lot of relationships to think about there right now. A lot of guys he knows on campus, and I think we've got a little bit of sound from Mr. Burton as well, right?
We do. We caught up with him after G-Day. Let's hear his thoughts on Georgia.
Going out to G-Day, I loved it. You know, I got to catch up with a lot of old teammates, met a lot of great players, talked over with the coaches. It was just really good. You know, I stayed the night as well with an old teammate, William Poole. He's currently a DB at Georgia right now. So that was just really good, you know, just good experience. I talked to Jaden Hazelwood. He's a receiver committed to Georgia right now. We talk sometimes too. He tells me that's the place where I need to be at. But it's all a part of the recruiting process, and I enjoy every moment of it.
Okay, Jeff, so with all of that being said, what are UGA's chances with him now that he's decommitted from Miami?
I think Georgia's in a pretty good spot, Hannah. I think the reason why is because of relationships. I mean, Jermaine grew up as a Miami fan. He was a fan of the U. He liked that. He flashed that, obviously, when he committed. But there were a lot of key relationships in place there. You heard him mention William Poole. That's one of his boys from Hateville Charter. There's also Chris Smith II. But he also's got those IMG connections. Nolan Smith. He knows Legend Cavazos, another highly rated safety in the class of 2020. I look at Jermaine Burton. I think he's currently rated as a top 20 receiver in the class of 2020. That thing's going to change. It's going to escalate north. I think when all is said and done and when all the 2020 rankings are finished with, you're looking at a top 5 receiver, a 5-star receiver, maybe even the number 1 or number 2 receiver in the class of 2020. And that's somebody that Dawg fans should keep their eyes on.
All right, we have time for one question before moving on, and that comes from Chris Topple. Excuse me if I pronounced that wrong. Who will be the next big get for UGA, Jeff?
Oh, wow. You want?
I know, we're jumping right into it.
You're jumping right into it.
I think it's good.
We're not even going to have a Diet Coke first. We're just going to jump right into this.
Nope.
I think Georgia's going to look at some key positions right there. A lot of guys' timelines are going to link up with what they want. You see Georgia where they're not offering players, and you see positions. I'm going to tell you people to look at what kind of happened last year with the guard spot a lot. Georgia's been mostly static with what they've offered at tight end. They've been mostly static with what they've offered at maybe potential places like running back, potential places like they keep adding defensive tackles. But I think they do have some guys in mind at certain positions. What are they going to do at safety? What are they going to do at cornerback? I think it will be very interesting to watch that play out. But I'm going to be a little cryptic there because that's what we got to do here on this forum. But I'll say this. When the class of 2019 is all signed and done, nobody's going to be saying what's wrong with UGA recruiting.
Thanks for the early question about who's the next get, and thank you for the question. All right. You are watching Before the Hedges right here on DawgNation, presented by our wonderful sponsor Kroger. And everybody, let the celebration begin with custom party platters starting at just $19.99. Order online at Kroger.com or see a deli associate for details. Orders must be placed 24 hours in advance, so start planning today for your graduation celebrations. And a lot of people are graduating, so that is a great offer for you, just $19.99 for those party platters. That's Jeff Sintel, our UGA recruiting expert. I'm Hannah Chalker. Thank you so much for watching Before the Hedges. We have got a lot more to come on today's show. We have talked about rapid fire latest news. We've touched on the 2019 class, but now let's jump ahead. No, let's spend more time in the 2019 class, and we're going to get to know five-star defensive tackle Trayvon Walker from Upson Lee High School. We're going to stay with 2019 for about 10 minutes here, and I really want to get to know Trayvon Walker. What is something about him that most people don't know?
Well, first of all, Trayvon Walker, fantastic player. He's a five-star, but he was at the state track meet this weekend, and he finished 8th in the shot put. Now, he threw the ball, like he holds the school record of about 51 or so feet, but he threw it about 49. He really wasn't happy with his efforts down there in Rome. But remember, this is his third best sport. He's a five-star defensive tackle, the nation's #3 defensive tackle. Also a very key cog on Upson Lee's back-to-back state championship team. They've won 64 straight games. He was good for about 15 points, 10 boards, and about 4 blocks per game as one of the spark plugs on one of those back-to-back state championship teams. Trayvon Walker is a very mature young man. It's funny, when I talk to him and his family in Rome at the state meet, he's almost like the guardian to his parents. He's like, what time are you getting home? When are you going to be there? I'm going to wait up for you. I'm going to make sure. You got your phone? Is it charged up? Very mature guy. And it's funny, he's thinking about taking a beach trip this summer, but his parents are going to allow him to do that because they know the guys he's going with. One of those is former teammate David Marshall. That's a possibility. And they know David's got his head screwed on right and Trayvon's got his head screwed on right, so that's all good with them.
You see a lot of these highlights here of him at the Nike opening where he's buddy-buddy with Nolan Smith. Does that give any inclinations?
Well, Nolan's going to be buddy-buddy with anybody that he thinks will help him win a championship. That's just kind of the way Nolan is. But you see Nolan, and Nolan's actually recruiting him for 2 things, and we're going to maybe drop a few dimes here on the intel coming up later tonight. But Nolan's recruiting him to Georgia. That's kind of the long-term pitch that he's coming at him with. But he's got a short-term pitch as well. Trayvon Walker told me that Nolan's also trying to get him to come down and join him for a season, a few months down there at IMG Academy in Bradenton, Florida. Apparently IMG, those ascenders could use another elite defensive tackle, much like Kirby Smart or any other SEC school. They're never going to shy away from those big-time defensive tackles. Here's a little nugget about Trayvon. His coaches there at Upson Lee are concerned about people running away from him at the defensive end spot he occupies now, and they've even toyed with the idea in practice reps so far this year of moving him to inside linebacker so he'll be in the middle of the field. Teams can't run away from him. And this young man at 6'5", 265 pounds is athletic. He's athletic enough to pull that sort of stuff off, and that's why we got the Most Wanted segment right here. We're second half of this tonight, Hannah, and we're just going big time on Trayvon Walker because I think he is the #1 most important remaining target for Georgia in the 2019 class.
Willie Gray Jr. said, what's the percentage that Popo flips to Georgia? Maybe Trayvon Walker helps that out. Drew Roman comes in, he says 98%. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm going to stick to this. I've always felt my information and just my read on the Owen Pappoe situation is, I think Owen Pappoe, unless something seismic changes with Auburn and the way he views that school, I think that commitment's going to stick. And I think you're going to see Georgia just find themselves pretty happy with J.D. Bertrand and Tresman Marshall on the inside. Of course, they're not going to turn away an Owen Pappoe. Georgia can always use an Owen Pappoe, but they don't necessarily need to add an inside linebacker. So that's why I think with Owen, 5-star, very talented, but Georgia's got a short class that it is, and maybe Owen might be doing the Bulldogs a favor where they don't need to load up at inside linebacker, and they can prioritize other slots in the class.
Real quickly, what sort of timeline is he on and what schools are still in the mix?
Yeah, so Trayvon's interesting because Trayvon will give you this by the beginning of my senior year, middle of my senior season. type timeline. I don't think it's that way. His family also doesn't think it's that way. They can definitely think. But it's funny, sometimes the parents have to play reporter and interview Trayvon as well to get a good read on what he's trying to do. But they feel he might be a little bit closer than that. They feel that he might be making his decision before his senior year. And when I asked Trayvon about the right way to look at his decision right now, and you see those pictures, the young man is always smiling, very magnetic personality, lots of charisma. He says it's still very close, and he still says he does not have a leader, an internal leader, in the back of his pocket that he's holding on to and just not releasing. He really hasn't figured this thing out yet.
All right, that is Travon Walker on UGA's most wanted list. We are coming after you. We will continue to update that list each week. All right, here are a few new names to know for the 2019 class. 4-star pro-style QB Joey Yellen from California. His name is floating around. What do fans out there need to know about him?
Yeah, I think this is going to be the Baskin-Robbins position for Georgia in 2019. It's going to be the flavor or the offer or the guy of the week or every 2 weeks. I mean, some names keep floating around. Everybody used to think about Ryan Helinski. They also used to think about, other guys like Graham Mertz. Joey Yellen's a guy that I think is very interesting because he took an unofficial visit to Georgia without an offer, basically because he'd been talking to James Coley a lot. He doesn't mind the fact he'd be coming in as the third guy there, and he was really intrigued by Georgia. He wants to leave California. He wants to go far away to go to his college and his higher education. And still at the time, right now he's got offers from Arizona State, Brown, Georgia, and San Jose State. And not many new offers are coming in. Joey Yellen told me late last week, still plans an unofficial visit to Georgia over the summer, early June. And I think what's really going to happen with Georgia, the quarterback position, they're going to be very fluid. They're going to evaluate a lot of guys. And the name that they offer will rise to the surface sometime this summer.
How do you feel about the QB offers in 2019? And it's not necessary to really get a 5-star, right?
Yeah, it's not necessary. It's also pretty stinking hard to do because you've got Jake Fromm and you've got Justin Fields there as well. I know certain quarterback types are not going to wade into those deep waters. KJ Jefferson, a highly touted quarterback out of Mississippi, told me that he wants to go somewhere where he can play right away. And that's a school right there where Georgia's not going to give him the opportunity to do that. There's Fromm, there's Fields. Some guys want immediate chances to play right away as a freshman. Other guys want to wait until they think it's okay not to play until their sophomore year. A good example we wrote about recently on DawgNation was Robbie Ashford, a dual-threat quarterback out of Hoover, Alabama. He grew up loving the Tide, but he looks at that force field of quarterbacks right now there at the Crimson Tide. All these guys are stacking up. Tua's still there, Talia's still there, Paul Tyson's still there. That's enough for him, and he's going to look elsewhere. Also likes Auburn, also really likes Georgia. So I think Georgia's best chance at a big-time elite quarterback in the mold of a Fromm or Fields is actually going to come in the 2020 class.
Let's go to St. Louis now, where 4-star wide receiver Marcus Washington dropped a top 5 with UGA in it. Who is he, and what are UGA's chances?
Yeah, Marcus Washington is a name that doesn't come up a lot, Hannah. Marcus Washington's out of Trinity Catholic in St. Louis. Now, the Illinois has a very interesting recruiting situation. Some recruiting fans will remember this tactic from years past. But what Illinois, the Fighting Illini, did is they hired a very popular high school coach, was very connected and very embedded in youth football, knows a lot of the guys, and he's trying to build a super class of all those guys to stay in Illinois. Well, it was interesting because Marcus Washington did not put the Illini in his top 5, but he had Georgia there. And Marcus Washington's one of those big receivers, about 6'3", rated as the nation's number 9 overall receiver in the class of 2019, number 59 or so overall. Lots of folks think he might wind up with an Ohio State. Seems natural because Georgia already has the nation's number 1 and number 2 receivers committed. But that is a very interesting name and a very interesting top 5 for Georgia because I think Marcus Washington, given his ability, is another guy that they probably can't pass up.
And last new name for the 2019 class, 3-star Jamie Big Six Robinson. Have the Bulldogs reverse course after good momentum from Crisp County after Quay Walker?
Yeah, Quay Walker is a signee, and that's everybody thinking that now the Crisp County down in Cordele has some good juju with Kirby Smart and his program after Big Cat Brian and what happened. I really like Jamie Robinson a lot. Really physical player. Funny story about his recruitment is, if you know that saying, Hannah, if a tree falls in the woods and nobody hears it, did it really make a sound?
Nope.
Well, Jamie Robinson, he was offered by Georgia, but he didn't know it until like 3 or 4 months later. So if you're offered by Georgia and you don't know it, were you really offered at all? Georgia finally corrected that. Mel Tucker came in and reaffirmed that he had an offer, and I love his tape. You know, Mr. Robinson has a very interesting thing. Started out playing quarterback for Crisp County, but if you look at his tape, there's a rushing touchdown, there's a big hit, there's a kickoff return, there's a punt return. The full gamut of plays he's made. That's why they call him Big Six, because he can make 6 points and put 6 points on the board in a lot of different ways. He's a guy that's already told me and told DawgNation that Georgia's getting an official visit no matter what. Watch South Carolina there and watch Auburn there as well.
Okay, before we jump ahead to 2020, we have time for another comment. This one comes from Robert. It says, any good news on the D-line recruits? And we've touched on that a little bit in the show, but anyone specifically?
Well, this is the part of the information period where it's very interesting because you hear different things, and I'm filtering out different threads of information regarding different players, but a lot of lists, and we're going to talk about this probably later on in the show, a lot of our own internal DawgNation lists probably need an update because of new information. And that's because a big-time five-star Zach Pickens out of T.L. Hanna in Greenville, South Carolina, doesn't do a lot of media, doesn't do a lot of interviews. But I've got different cells and pockets of information telling me that Georgia is in that with Mr. Pickens a lot more than folks think. Some people have it down to a 2-team race. Some people have it down to a 3-team race. But the five-star, Mr. Pickens, is definitely liking Georgia. I've heard different sources tell me that the mom really likes Georgia a lot. And when the mom really likes a certain school, you got a shot no matter what.
All right, it is time to jump ahead to our 2020 UGA class, and we have another Get to Know for you. These are my favorite segments because, Jeff, you have so much intel, and I love to be able to share these kids' stories. This one's on defensive end Myles Murphy from Powder Springs, Georgia. Why is he going to be so big time, Jeff?
Well, I hope we've got some film of Myles Murphy getting after it and going up and down, picking them up and putting them down, because Murphy, if you notice the way he moves, his feet barely touch the ground. We've got a cool name for it inside DawgNation with our coverage, but Myles Murphy's pinned tweet is still his Georgia offer. That was his first offer. Very interesting to think about there. But Myles told me, I said, man, is there any significance there? And he said, man, it's really my first. He does love Georgia. I'll never forget when I saw Myles Murphy on an early visit in his career at Georgia. Myles Murphy had his phone out. He was videotaping Georgia hitting the field right before the game. It looked like that was very important to him. And the main things, I tell you right now, if Myles Murphy was a 2019 prospect, he would still be high on Georgia's board. Very young man. Mom also likes Georgia a lot. But the thing that jumps out at me, given his size and skill level and ability, is he's told me he can run a 4.6 in the 40-yard dash. And when you're 6'5" and 250 pounds and still a rising junior this fall, and you're already clocking it, picking them up and putting them down that fast, I've heard some people on DawgNation have a very interesting term for his feet. Those things are so light. Have you heard that term yet, Hannah?
I've been told by somebody that term.
I call them Baryshnikovs.
Baryshnikov.
Because those things, Google it, young folks, if you don't know what I'm talking about. Mikhail Baryshnikov, the Russian dancer extraordinaire, public figure, whatever you want to call it. He was kind of the Kim Kardashian pop culture figure of his era. Very light on his feet, and I think Mr. Myles Murphy has some Baryshnikovs when he's moving through A gap and B gap and C gap for Hillgrove.
Only Jeff. Okay, so most importantly, though, is he feeling UGA? He's
feeling a lot of schools. I think Georgia's going to definitely be in the wheelhouse for him long term, and that's really what you want to look for with a guy like that. Is he elite? Yes. Is everybody wanting him? Yes. Did Georgia get in early? Yes. Now, he's really researched a lot of his area schools. He's researched Alabama. He's getting the Southern Conference, the Southeastern Conference, and the Deep South schools figured out. This summer, he tells me he wants to take a Midwest tour. He wants to check out Penn State, wants to check out Ohio State, wants to check out Michigan. I think Myles Murphy is still in the research and fact-finding portion of his recruitment, and I think he'll have some more clarity this fall when he starts taking unofficial visits to games about just what he's looking for.
Something really interesting you wrote this week about Tate Ratledge from Rome, Georgia. Something about a blindside block. I hadn't even heard this guy's name before your article. Tell us about this.
Well, Tate Ratledge is a guy I really wanted to get to know. And Tate Ratledge has a unique family line. His family tree, get this, guys. His dad is 6'4", and he played a couple of seasons in the NFL. And Dean Ratledge, Tate's dad, is known as the runt of the family. Now, first of all you young recruiting bucks out there, go find yourself a recruit whose dad played in the NFL and is 6 feet 4 inches tall and is still called the runt of the family. Tate's already 6'6". His growth plates have been looked at by his physicians, and they say he's probably got another inch or two to grow. He'll eventually be 6 feet, 8 inches tall. And the blindside block is something I really wrap my head around, because last year he faced an opponent where he'd been cut all game, and he decided enough is enough, I've had all I can stand. He takes his man, he drives him off the line, down the field, through the sidelines, and plants him on the track there at Darlington High School. Blindside block, everybody remember Michael Orr in Blindside? That's what he did. He took that guy out of the frame. Tate Ratledge estimated to me that was about a 20 to 25 yard block. Afterward, the officials, the stripes, they put some of that yellow laundry on the field, and they called it unnecessary roughness on the offensive tackle for just putting out one of those. That's a term I learned growing up when I was a Cub reporter. Go run and tell your mama blocks. He gave that young man a go run and tell your mama block.
It seems not much has changed, because before the show you told me he got kicked out of 5 daycares when he was younger for taking the other kids' toys. Not much has changed with him.
I tell you what, if you're one of those salty offensive line coaches like Will Friend at Tennessee, Brent Key at Alabama, and of course Sam Pittman at Georgia, you're rewinding that film and you're like, come on, I want to see this. Come see this kid. Did he really just do that? And they're grinning and they're spamming the rewind button. And then they hear that story about daycares, how he got kicked out of 5 daycares because he kept grabbing everybody's toys and wanting everybody's toys, and he was just very aggressive. And those are a couple of things when you put together the scouting profile of Tate Ratledge. Find yourself a guy with that type of DNA where he's got some 6'8" and 6'9" uncles and cousins, and then he was also got kicked out of 5 daycares. It's a pretty good recipe for a salty offensive lineman.
Well, a lot of coaches are watching that tape. Real quick, who are the schools involved?
I think there's a lot of schools. He's keeping things wide open. He just picked up an offer from Oklahoma today. Miami recently offered. His dad, very interesting here, is a Tennessee fan. Even has the big orange T on his truck. He's an offensive line coach there at Darlington as well. But he's going to let Tate make his own mind up, make up his own decision. Alabama is big there. Alabama is his pinned tweet. Tate told me that's kind of like the gold standard offer. Everybody knows by the pinned tweet, if you get an offer from Alabama, that means you can get after it and play. And Tennessee, Alabama, and Georgia, there are going to be some other schools in the mix, but it's not rocket science to sit there and listen to Tate Ratledge and think those 3 are going to be in it for him down to the wire.
Awesome stuff, Jeff. You are watching Before the Hedges, presented by Kroger. Let the celebration begin with custom party platters starting at just $19.99. Order online at Kroger.com or see a deli associate for details. Order must be placed 24 hours in advance, so start planning today for your graduation celebrations. That's Jeff Simtel. I'm Hannah Chalker, and with graduation comes prom season and prom dogs. I've been waiting all show for this, Jeff.
This is a first. We're going to have Gucci belts on Before the Hedges. We're going to have some open-toed shoes, some major 5-star swag on the shoes. She's going to tell me who wore it well. We're going to ask you guys who wore it well, and we want to know about these show dogs.
I think it's who wore it best, Jeff. So we want you to weigh in right now. All right, we had a fashion show with UGA commits, and we have the pictures to prove it, starting with Adam Anderson. Let's take a look at his prom outfit. He's on the left here of your screen. What do you think, Jeff?
So you got the bow tie. Bow ties are always cool. Now he's rocking the nice little lapel. It looks like, what's that cool? It's like a teal, I guess, or whatever. I want to see, according to the movie Boomerang, if he's got a matching belt. But I do like the rings. If you see those rings they have on his hands right there, those are state championship chicken wings. He's won multiple of those at Rome. He will be enrolling at Georgia later this month. Nation's #1 outside linebacker, 5-star defensive end, Adam Anderson.
Okay, next up, Jake Camarda.
Jake Camarda, yeah.
I like the gray, the light gray.
Another light gray. Looks like that's a happy picture they have right there. That's the punter/kicker hybrid for Georgia that's in this signing class right now. The interesting news over the last week about Marshall Long, I think he's one of the Georgia 2018 signees who could play very early. Very classic look there. He didn't neglect his watch game there as well. Jake Camarda.
Watch game strong. Okay, next on our list, Tyson Campbell. This is a good one.
Tyson Campbell, so he's got the cross, he's got
the shoes, Jeff.
The shoes, the bow tie. I'm just killing airtime right now until we get that the graphic down so you can sit there and see those shoes.
I think he has a Gucci belt too.
Those shoes belong to a dude that can run a 10.39 in the 100 meters, a 4.4 laser in the 40. Those are some money-making feet right now. and he's taking care of those with some moneymaker shoes right
I like
there.
the whole body language, very model pose, very Instagram model-esque. Okay, John Fitzpatrick, let's see what he wore to the prom.
So you watch
classic look.
You look at John Fitzpatrick, and I think this is the Georgia signee that's going to play Superman at Halloween and all those parties. He's got that Henry Cavill, that sort of Christopher Reeve type look. He's 6'7.5" of all things. That's probably a very tall young lady that she just looks like she comes up to his shoulders because he's so dadgum tall. But you look at John Fitzpatrick, great classic look right there, 2018 signee.
Cute couple. All right, next up, Jamari Salyer. And Jeff, I think this is your best dress winner.
Yeah, I just like this. You've got the clash of colors. You've got him with the sunglasses.
Love the white.
You know, him in the very clean white here. It reminds me of Ricky Rose out of the 305. Rick Ross. I mean, Jamari Salyer is just a boss. I want to know how people are thinking about this fashion show right now. I want to know what they like. I want to know who's wearing it best right now. But my vote right now looks like Jamari Salyer.
Robert Jose said he is the winner. I'm not sure who he's talking about, but hopefully Jamari. Okay, crimson seems to be a theme because here's Chris Smith as well. They're rocking the crimson. Well, that's kind of more of a maroon, but that red color kind of seems to be in this season.
Well, that crimson, I just see that, and that makes me think of I'm going to claim 17 national championships, and maybe only 5 of them I might have earned on the field. But, you know, Chris Smith's always been, they call him Agent Alpha. He's wearing the blacks. He's got another open collar look right there. And again, the shoes. The shoes are velvet. Matching the dress. It looks like we got velvet overload right here, and Chris Smith definitely wearing it well.
I like her dress. Her dress is my favorite for the females. Okay, last but not least, because this is my favorite, Channing Tindall. Velvet, crimson-y maroon blazer, Gucci belt, white pants, fly. That's fly.
Gucci belt, it's kind of like what Chance the Rapper sings about. He sings about. I mean, I like this look. I like this look so much I want to see. Look at the coordination with the bow tie, the watch. Perfect. I need to see the shoes. We need to see a little bit more of the shoes. I wonder if his shoe game was on point like Chris Smith and Tyson Campbell. This guy's is the big-time inside linebacker that should make a lot of people not worry too much about the future of the inside linebacker spot with that Owen Papo news earlier this month. Really looking really well. Channing Tindall, big-time inside linebacker out of South Carolina.
All right, we've got a lot of love for our prom pictures. Good segment, Jeff.
I think that's the only show in the history of the world where you can get prom pictures from UGA commits live on Facebook.
And recruiting information. Okay, to wrap it all up, what is the Intel, what are you hearing this week that nobody else is?
Well, there's some things that are not really right for a tweet yet, not really right for a story. We mentioned a little bit of that. I'm hearing some good things back and forth now about Zach Pickens. That's the 5-star defensive lineman, defensive end out of South Carolina. Of course, Clemson and South Carolina are still heavy in the business there, but I do think Georgia is a stakeholder in that decision. Got some information where I heard that Shiloh Sanders, the young son, the defensive back target, he is the son of Deion Sanders, in my mind, the greatest cornerback, at least pure cover cornerback of all time. He's feeling a certain type of way about Georgia, really likes Georgia, wants to come back and take another visit. You're seeing lots of things. I would pay a little bit of attention to a couple of whispers of information that's coming out now about Stetson Bennett. He's the number 3 quarterback at Georgia, the preferred walk-on. If you talk to any of the players on last year's number 1 defense, Lorenzo Carter, Roquan Smith, they thought he was very good enough to be on scholarship. And I just wonder if he's going to get a shot at Georgia. You hear whispers about him maybe transferring out to someplace he can play. I thought, to me, it was very telling when I heard all these good things about Stetson Bennett in practice for 2 seasons now, or a bulk of a season now, and he didn't get a lot of time to shine at G-Day in the spring game. That made me wonder about things about where his future is in the program. And he's another guy that's talented enough to play, and if he's not on scholarship at Georgia, I know Georgia only has 2 scholarship quarterbacks right now. I could see a scenario where Georgia would offer him a scholarship in order to get him to stay. I just don't know if that's going to happen there with Stetson. Again, I'm just thinking right there, Stetson is really good. He's done some good work for Georgia. You hear teammates, you hear coaches acknowledge that. I just wonder what kind of future he has as a guy that can really play and where he sees his future is at Georgia.
Also, in closing thoughts, it was between Channing Tindall and Jamari Salyer, and Salyer takes the win for Best Dressed in Prom Pictures. All right, everybody, thank you so much for watching Before the Hedges. Don't forget, we are on SoundCloud or wherever you get your podcasts or listen to your podcasts. Download us, take us wherever you go, and you can listen to us each week. This has been fun. This is Jeff Santel. I'm Hannah Chalker. We are here every single Monday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. We will have so much more for you next week. In the meantime, for all of your recruiting needs, just go to DawgNation.com or follow this guy right here on all social media and DawgNation as well. All right, everybody, I hope we got your week off to a good start. Hope you learned some things. Leave us some comments in the comment section. We will get back to you, and we will see you next week. This has been Before the Hedges presented by Kroger, and we'll see you then.